Hello.
Hey, Carrie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hey, we're live, but we haven't had anyone sign on yet, so I'm just waiting.
Okay. Yeah, I figured we're live. I
Yeah,
had I had another interesting day with my department.
you'll have to tell me about it tomorrow.
Yep.
So we'll wait a few more minutes here to see if anyone else signs on.
Sure. I was on the link that you sent out in Aries Communication, and then I went to my email. Says, "Well, I'm not sure if this is it," so I went to my email and found this.
Ah, gotcha. So if we don't get any viewers in like a few minutes, I'll shut it down and then just record a podcast.
Okay. I still want credit for coming to the meeting.
You got it. So we do have a viewer, so we'll go ahead and go live.
Okay.
So we got some people joining us. So I want to
Good.
thank you for joining us tonight for our November 16th, 2022 edition of the Mountain House High School Site Council. And tonight we're talking about teens and their all ways on digital lives and ways to manage that at home. In some ways, we're also supporting that here at school. So thank you for joining us on your side. So we'll just do some quick introductions. We have a few people with us tonight. School Site Council's opportunity to learn a little bit more about what we're doing here at the high school and have some of our teachers share their perspective from the classroom and for you to provide some input and have a chance to ask questions into some of our key initiatives that we're working on here. So we do have one teacher with us tonight so far. I'll have her introduce herself. Go ahead, Carrie.
Hi. Hi. I'm. Can anybody hear me? Um, I'm Dr. Carrie Moquette, and I am the CTE business teacher, one of the CTE business teachers, and also the department chair of the CTE department. So that's who I am.
Thank you, Dr. McQuett. And I'm Brian Shum. I'm the Associate Principal of Curriculum and Instruction here at Mountain House High School. So, Site Council for tonight, our objective is to discuss some tips to help teens deal with digital drama that has the potential to impact their home and school lives. So, agenda first up, we do some introductions. We got a video to kick off the night tonight dealing with digital drama. And we'll talk about tips for managing digital drama at home and wrap things up with a Q&A tonight with a few people who are joining us. So just to get us started, I want to welcome you to the workshop. This workshop is one that's designed by one of our partners, Common Sense Media. We work with them. They provide the curriculum that we use in our advisory courses that focuses on digital citizenship. So we know a huge component of teens' lives and everyone's lives right now is, the digital component, and it's important to tackle that both at home and at school. So we use their curriculum in a lot of different ways to support that. And I want to start off just by sharing from the classroom perspective how we see the impact of the digital lives on teens in the classroom. So we know that it's not easy raising teens. I've got one of myself. Sometimes they can be sullen and they're striving to separate themselves and create their own identity. And digital media and social media plays into that. So we're going to share some tips. And Carrie, just wanted to see if you have any insight you could share from your own classroom, your own experience, how we see the impact on teens in the classroom.
Well, I have an advisory group of freshmen this year. Last year I had seniors and they graduated, and I have a new crop of freshmen. They are in large part addicted to their phones. They are very caught up in what goes on in their social media sites that they connect with on their phones, and they react to it and they share with each other, and they have this dramatic responses going on. So I tap into that, and we have discussions about the positives, the negatives, the digital citizenship and the responsibility of being in these digital sites and how we impact others. We've been having discussions the past several weeks about that and trying to get them to get into a sense of what others feel, how they feel, the impacts that they have with the particular decisions they make. So we have discussions about that focused in in the advisory because one, it's really important, and I see in all of my classes it's so hard to put the phones down,
Mhm.
and when they have a minute, they're said, "Look what I have here. Look what's on this. Can you believe this?" And it's the phones are supposed to be a way, but it's they find a way to get them out, and when there's a second of time, so there's that piece that is to deal with. But the place where I'm really able to have some focused discussions is in the advisory group, and we've had some really good discussions in there and with freshmen. So I'm able to get them in their first year here. So I'm happy with how that's been going, and we've had some pretty serious discussions.
Thanks for sharing that perspective, Carrie. And it's good to hear those conversations are going on in your advisory class. That's exactly the purpose of them, is to have those conversations and be able to talk about it, separate from the content classes that we have. So we know it's always a struggle. We have a policy where phones are supposed to be put away during the day, but we know that there's a tendency to check on them because there's exciting stuff going on um, in the kids' digital lives that they're constantly trying to check on. I want to share another perspective from the classroom. This is from Mary Lindsay, another one of our site council members. She's an ELA teacher. She's actually traveling to a conference tonight, so she couldn't be here, but she did type up something that she wanted me to share. Um, and her point is that we often think of online trauma as being separate from what happens in the real world. But for our students, online trauma is a real part of their lives. It's very real to them. So when students are struggling with trauma, whether it's stemmed from something online or not, it often impacts their performance in school because they're distracted. One of the things I talk about with my students is tracking our time online and limiting time on sites or apps that cause us problems. And sometimes just being aware about how our time in online spaces affects us and taking breaks is enough to separate from the drama and improve how we feel about it. So I think great perspective from her too. And she makes a good point that, we tend to separate digital lives from our real lives, quote unquote. But for teens, it's all the same thing. And so that distraction's there. And even though a lot of the stuff is going on outside of school, it carries over and has a real impact on relationships at school. And that's part of what we're talking about tonight.
And just to add to that point, Brian, these students have not known a world where a digital impact in their lives does not exist.
Right. That's a
They've
great point
known
too.
that is their world, and reality for them has become, this that screen is real. It
Hmm.
isn't something that's divorced or artificial. What goes on in that screen is reality,
Yeah.
and how they interpret it and how they blend it into their lives is something that we see and is not separate from it. It is integral part of who these kids are,
Right.
and we have to recognize that.
Right. We do. We have to recognize that, and we have to work together on that to kind of resolve those issues the best we can. So I want to thank you for sharing that perspective. Um, I want you to think about as we go forward, just some things that you may be seeing in your own family. And again, I've got a teenager at home, so I definitely can relate to these. But just thinking about, does your kid sometimes seem upset after reading text or social media messages? And what causes that drama? Are you aware of that? And do you experience drama online yourself? What do you do if they come to you for support? And what's the biggest challenge when it comes to digital drama? So we'll address some of these tonight with the tips we have, but I'm sure you can relate to those. with your own teens at home. So I'm going to play a video here. While you're watching the video, just something to think about. What are some of the key topics in the video, and what can you relate to as a parent when it comes to dealing with these issues in your own kids at home? So we'll ask you to type in a few things once we conclude the video here, but just something to think about. And this video comes from Common Sense Media. So I'll go ahead and play it here.
People fight, digital drama is a thing. There are ways to avoid digital drama, but I think it's mainly inevitable. You need to get ready to have something be said that maybe you won't like.
On social media, everything social-wise gets a bit more intense. It just causes so much unnecessary drama, I would say.
Sometimes I need to take a break from it, because sometimes it's too much for me. And then if there's drama going on, I'll set it aside. And even though there are steps that we can take to reduce it, it's not going to end.
You can say anything over text, which you would never actually say in real life.
It's so much easier to fight with your friend over the phone than it is to fight with your friend in person. That's a new thing.
People can just hide behind, certain accounts and certain places on social media and just say whatever they want to say. We kind of have this disconnect that I think sometimes social media can cause, where it develops almost a tolerance for a lack of empathy.
It's really important to think about how other people are going to take it, because whatever comment you make could be seen by potentially thousands of millions of people. Now more than ever, where somebody makes a rude comment and they get put on blast for it.
You don't see the other person's reactions, so you just keep on going. You don't know if the person is sad. You don't know if they're angry. You don't know what they're thinking about you.
Social media can turn into sort of a negative space when there's a lot of anonymous posting. No one else knows who that person is, so it creates a lot of tension and drama within friend groups. In the comment sections of posts that are viral or popular, I'll see someone voicing an opinion, and all of a sudden there'll be a thread of even hundreds of comments, people just arguing and not even knowing each other.
You could get insulted very easily, on your appearance, on your just anything that you say, anything that you put out onto the internet.
Something so small can escalate to something so big, and as it escalates, the topic can completely change to something that's really big.
People that I know actually worry about how many followers they have compared to other people, if they're not getting as many messages.
When I see the people around me getting into drama on social media, kind of makes me not want to be on social media. It just seems easier to not be a part of that. I have a couple of friends who are very close, but they fight a lot. I'll get screenshots of their conversation from both of the people being upset and sending long paragraphs about how upset they are, and instead of talking to each other about it in person. So I've suggested to both of them multiple times.
I would say I'm more comfortable talking face to face, because on social media, it's hard to communicate a sense of realness and emotions.
The best way to deal with digital drama is to leave what's happening. Maybe it's a group chat that you're in, just to leave that, because the more that people talk about it, the more that people are going to think about it, and the more you might get into it and you might say more things.
It is really easy to get your feelings hurt, but you just gotta it's just they're just hiding behind a screen, basically.
I think the best way to deal with digital drama and help mediate it is, first of all, I always suggest talking in person, because that's always easier.
Avoiding confrontation is something that I'm trying to be aware that I don't do. A way that I can just disassociate myself from the negativity is to just not respond.
So I'll give you just a minute here. If you saw anything in the video that you can relate to, go ahead and type that in. If you're watching on YouTube, you got the chat box you can type in, and we'll see it on our end here. So I don't see any comments coming in. We'll address them as they come in if they do, but I want to move forward. So I'm sure if you are watching, you can definitely relate to some of those things. One of the things that we just saw posted is that social media causes a disconnect between people. Definitely true. It's definitely something that we see. Even though social media is supposed to create that connection in some way with people, and sometimes it does, it also drives that disconnect we see in a very real way. I think, a lot of times we see students and it seems like they've forgotten how to talk to each other face to face. So that's one of the problems that we encounter in the classroom sometimes. So definitely. I'm going to move into some tips for the next part. So these are our tips that have been compiled through the research of Common Sense Media, how to best address some of these things with teens. And one of them is to diffuse or de-escalate and tell kids to take a break and a breath before responding to the drama. So that drama to them is very real. And one of the things that hasn't changed about being a teenager is that it's tough. Their bodies are changing, friendships are shifting, their identities are forming. They're trying to figure out how to fit in, where they fit in, who they're going to be. And that digital presence and social media just adds another component to it. And they can't escape that. They're part of that 24/7. Whereas before, it may be something they encountered at school, but now it follows them home too. It's constant presence. So one of the things they can do is, just diffuse and de-escalate and have the kids take a break before they respond and don't follow the initial reaction, and do what they might be thinking when they see that kind of stuff and lash out. So just taking a breather there. Step number 2 is try the face-to-face test and have kids have them imagine they're talking to somebody in person and not just from behind the screen. A lot of online trauma is caused by disinhibition, and that's this idea that there's extra cruelty that comes from the anonymity of being behind a keyboard. So you feel like you're a little bit hidden, you can post anything you want, and there's no consequences for that. So one of the things to encourage kids to do is really think about how they would address this face to face. So if you've taken the step of having them take a moment, if they still want to respond, ask them to pretend that they're the other person and tell you what they're about to type. And that way, kind of walking through that scenario might help them understand how to respond to that a little bit better. And tip number 3, encourage in-person conversation. Even though it's hard, it will resolve drama more effectively than online messages. So a lot of kids resist that in-person conversation for a lot of reasons. One of them is the disconnect that happens through social media. And one of the things that comes up when people are communicating online is that a lot of body language is lost. So things like tone of voice, eye contact, those types of things are really important in communication. And when those are lost online, sometimes the message is convoluted as well. So when possible, encouraging the in-person conversation is sometimes helpful. However, I will say there's a caveat to that. A lot of the drama that we have here at school, where kids get into arguments, starts online somewhere. So it's something that happens on social media. Somebody posts something, and then another student will come up to confront them at school here, and all of a sudden they wind up in the office because of it. And a lot of times once you talk to the kids, they realize that it's a misunderstanding, that somebody posted something that wasn't even about them, or they posted something that was intended to be funny, and it turns out not to be funny. So while we encourage in-person conversation to hash those things out, it comes with that caveat that sometimes, that can lead to conflict if it's not done in the right way. And then finally, help them take control. So there's settings and in-app tools to lessen drama with strangers. Sometimes it comes from people we don't even know. So it can be more tempting to participate in the drama because we don't ever see it in person, but that's not the best approach. So having them, walking them through using the settings appropriately and trying to restrict their account so it's not totally public and not accessible by everyone can sometimes help as well. So a couple of big tips, 4 tips to try out at home with kids to help them walk through the drama. It's probably not going to go away. We can't ask them to just ignore it. That may not be a realistic response, but helping them through the process can be helpful to them. So just think about how you can apply those at home. And finally, just want to talk through some of the things that we're doing as a school to address some of the issues. Carrie brought up the advisory period that she uses to have some of these conversations with students. She has a freshman class this year, and those students are going to stay with her the entire 4 years of high school. And they go through the digital citizenship curriculum with her and have some great conversations about things that they're encountering and how they can best manage their digital lives too. And there's no magic bullet to this. It's just a way of helping kids be aware of it and manage it the best they can. Another thing that we have is our anonymous tip line. And this is a link on our website. A lot of things have come up through social media that we become aware of because people will post them to the anonymous tip line. And a lot of times somebody will post something, this drama started online. You might want to check in on these kids because we heard there's going to be a fight. So that allows us to be proactive about it and approach those kids and resolve that situation and help them talk through it before it even starts. So sharing with kids that we do have that anonymous tip line where they don't have to put their name, but they can share information allows us to step in a lot of cases. Another big support is our counselor and wellness center access. We do have a wellness center here on campus, and students can request to go to it at any time. We have a counselor in there all day long. It's a place they can go and just decompress if they need to. It's a place that they can go and get advice from a counselor about dealing with this drama. Just with, knowing that to them, that online drama is very real. It's not separated from what's going on and often becomes distracting to them here at school. And along with the wellness center, we also have their counselors. They can always make appointments with them or walk in and talk to them. But the wellness center is a good place for students to start with that. And then finally, another big initiative here at school is our focus on restorative practices. So when things do get heated, when it does get to the point where there's an argument, and hopefully not a fight, we have very few of those, but oftentimes we do have disagreements or arguments between students. We have a restorative practices specialist here on campus. So students can be referred to that person through a counselor, through a teacher. Students can seek the restorative practices specialist out on their own. And that's a person just to help them manage these conversations, help them manage these conflicts in a way that's going to be helpful to them. So a couple different things we're doing here at school to support that, in addition to the great support that you provide as parents as well. So I want to thank you for tuning in tonight, those of you who have. It's great to have your support with these things. So hopefully those are some tips you can think about implementing at home and knowing that we have some things in place to help address that at school too, but it's not an easy problem to address. It causes drama and causes a lot of confusion sometimes and a lot of real hurt with students who encounter these types of things online. So I'll leave it open for questions for a minute. Any comments or questions from our viewers out there? So I do see a question here. What are the dates for on the screen? That's a good question. Those are future dates for school site council. So we're actually going to send out a survey to our community to get some ideas for topics that you may want to see as part of site council in the future. So those are our next two coming up February 23rd and April 26th. You can look for that survey coming out soon. So I don't see any other questions coming in tonight. I want to thank you for tuning in and thank you for the support that you're providing at home. And with that, we'll sign off. Have a great Thanksgiving break and take care.